Hey folks, welcome back. Here we are. Tom McLaughlin from Lovell, Maine. Gino Funicello from Jackson, Cow Hampshire. And we're here on this 28th day of February.
Last day of February tomorrow.
Year of our
begins.
Lord 2018.
March the 1st.
We've just celebrated the one year anniversary of Donald Trump being in the White House about a month ago. And our top management has come up with this useful question for us to ask of each other. And my partner in crime
Well,
here.
before we get into that,
What?
can we say, all right, what we're going to cover?
Let me, okay, because I've got that here. We're going to
good
do
news, bad news, winners and
Yeah,
losers as
okay.
usual, right?
Right.
I'm going to talk about mainstream media bubble, how they don't know much about guns, and it's becoming up.
You can very well do that.
I want to talk about the Inspector General from DOJ's report, which is
Okay,
coming out
we can do
probably
that.
in March.
We can really do that.
And I want to talk about, I keep saying I'm going to, Google lawsuit. I may lead with that.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Now, I had a few ideas that we might be able to talk about here. I'd like to talk about the update from the people in the White House with no Secret Service passes. I'd like to also speak about the number of Russians that were indicted for not colluding on the Trump candidacy, of course. They didn't collude. I'd like to talk a little about Carter Page and the General Flynn. I'd like to talk a little bit about the much misunderstood Trump 25-cent a gallon gas tax. These are kind of things we'll touch on. Historical budget deficits and others. And to lead off the
Ought
show.
to be interesting. If we
lead
get
off
to
the
all of them, we'll be doing great.
Oh, we might need 4 or 5 weeks to do that. In the wake, and this is from top management, never before seen to this moment.
Not seen by human eyes,
Absolutely.
except for our producer.
Not even mine.
He is human, I think.
In the wake of the tragedy in Parkland, Florida, Presidente Trump is advocating the carrying of firearms by up to 20% of teachers nationwide to defend their students against armed intruders. Please discuss both the pros and cons of this proposal.
Well,
Now, Tom, as a former teacher, I think you should.
yeah, I remember once there was a lockdown at my school. So, we had a drill and we had to, in case of a shooter, then we went through a certain procedure. And the procedure was, shut the lights off in your classroom. If you're on the first floor, pull down the shades, lock the windows so they couldn't come in that way. And then take your students and hide away from the door so that there's glass in the door.
Yeah.
So the shooter can't get in because it's locked. And if he looks in there, he can't see any kids
I
because
see.
they're all cowered over out of
Yeah.
sight. That was it. That was the drill. Okay, so one day, it's a free period. The kids were off doing gym and music and everything, and so I had this prep period. So I'm in my room, and then in comes the drill. So I'm supposed to go cower over there in the
closet.
corner, and we don't know what's happening. We don't know what it is. It turned out it was nothing. Some kid wrote BOM on the bathroom
You
stall.
spelled it incorrectly, of course.
Yeah, and so the principal flipped out, had a lockdown, called in the dogs, called in all the area cops, and they're
Bomb,
going through the
B-O-M.
corridors with dogs in BOM. Kid couldn't even spell bomb.
Exactly.
All he did was
Brilliant
write it on the
kid.
stall. I didn't talk about overreaction, but I didn't know that then. So I'm saying, this could be a shooter. I don't know what it is. And I'm thinking, how stupid is this? I mean, I got a gun at home, and I would have had it with me if at the time I was carrying every day. And, but I couldn't, bring it to school. I felt, I got to wait for this guy. What am I going to do? Throw a book at him? I mean, it's stupid.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I'm thinking, this is stupid. A gun-free zone, signs I come in, the school, gun-free zone, drug-free zone, all that. You're asking for people to come in. Nobody here has a gun except you. You can come in and do whatever you want.
So what's your opinion then, that people should be
that's
armed?
that's when I decided that my Second Amendment rights were being violated by this legislation introduced by then Senator Joe Biden in the early 90s, declaring all schools in the country gun-free zones. ridiculous situation. So that made me a believer. And then,
So
of
you-
course, I wrote a couple of columns about it. One
Well,
5
this-
years ago, one last week.
Yeah, the one last week was pretty interesting. I read it as I was loading my AK-47 to go out and hunt squirrels in the backyard, and the little buggers were worried when they saw me coming, I can tell you. I disagree with your article. I have to say that. I thought it was kind of, it was apropos of the times, but I don't think it works because, Mr. Trump had his shot. He really did. Back in the 60s, he had his chance to go over and kill Viet Cong if he wanted to, and for some reason he had a sprained ankle now. Yesterday I heard
What
him
does that
on...
have to do with school shootings?
Well, it has a lot to do because he's got an opinion. His opinion now is that even if he didn't have a gun, he would have gone in that school himself and gotten that little rascal with the machine gun. And, whether you believe Trump or
Yeah.
not, I think that's a little sketchy. He probably been hiding in the back of a limo with guards on top of him,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff he does.
Yeah, so here's what you got now. Let me bring this all back to where we really should look at this. School with 3,000 kids. That's a big school.
It is a big school.
Yeah, I went to a Catholic school. There were 350 kids, and it wasn't a big deal. So you get 3,000 kids, and there's multiple buildings, and this crazy person.
Is that how many were in Florida school?
Yeah,
Okay.
this kid comes in the school. He turns on the fire alarm. So naturally, you're trained. When the fire alarm goes off, you get the hell out of the building quick.
Yeah.
And then what the little maniac did, he had his machine gun. He started mowing down kids coming down the rampway. He even had enough sense or whatever to leave his machine gun and join the crowd leaving the building after he killed 18. And
They say he
wounded.
had the mentality of a 12-year-old, but that's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Both of those things.
And of course, the guys
They
with
got away.
the guys with the guns, if you had changed the shirt, he'd probably still be away. The guys with the guns, the 2 or 3 guards around the building outside, they did the thing they're really trained to do, hide behind the building. While the gunfire is going on in the school, they with their little
It was
pea
sad,
shooters, because
very
they know, if you know anything about guns, anything, what they would have had to do was run into a full corridor of kids screaming their heads off, running toward you, and you're trying to shoot the guy with a assault weapon who's blowing these kids away, and you're probably going to get out in the first hail of bullets. But they should have at least tried to do something, okay? So Mr. Trump
They were
says...
called school resource
Yeah.
officers, right?
Resource, yeah. That's what they pay him for. And they had no resourcefulness. So the point is, Trump comes out and says, well, everybody should be armed. The teachers, 20% of all teachers should be armed. Now you get a picture. Take it down one step further. The alarm goes off, the kids hear, and you hear the shooting somewhere in the hallways. You're in this big 3,000 kids school. What do? You go to the closet and you unlock your gun, your 6-shooter.
Shouldn't have to do that. You should
What
have
are the
it, should
kids
have
doing?
it on your person.
No, they want them to. They'd have to lock it up. That
Nah.
would be. No,
Then
okay.
you might as well not have it.
That's what I say. You might as well not have it because by the time you get the gun out of the closet, you're dead.
Then you got to get the bullets and put them in.
There were
and
much better-
Hold on for a minute.
Yeah,
Hold on.
much better
put that
ways
gun
to do
down.
this
Let me finish this here.
Without arming everybody in the school, because then the SWAT team comes in and they see you, John Wayne, former school teacher, aiming over their heads because you're shooting the guy that's going out a window behind them, and they kill you because you're another person with a gun. They don't know who's killing anybody. They haven't taken numbers, serial numbers, all that yet.
Okay.
So your whole
All right,
argument,
finish
your
it.
whole
Go ahead.
argument, and Trump's argument, I expect more from Trump than I do from you because I realize you're a former teacher who has guns. Trump has probably never fired a gun in his life, more than likely. He'd probably run if he heard one go off, and he's going to stand up there and extempore about the beauty of having teachers with guns. It won't work. It wouldn't work. Take the mental cases out of the schools. The police went to this kid's house 37 times because he was a nut. Neighbors called the FBI because he was a nut. They said he had bags of guns. He was out killing animals. His mother had just died, and they left this kid on the street to the point where he walked away from one of the worst crimes in American history, and it was only because a cop saw he had a red shirt on. Hey, that kid looks familiar. If you had a white shirt on with a school number, nothing would happen.
So government institutions in the form of police who are supposed to protect us, right?
Right.
And people, Democrats like you who favor gun control as the best answer to this kind of school shootings, would say we need to let the police protect us. We don't need guns of our own, right? And that sum up the argument.
No, that's not my argument. No, not at all.
Well,
I'm
it's
just
the
saying
argument
guns,
of your party.
Well, no, I don't care.
Democrat Party. That's
No,
what they say.
90
Gun control. Take AK-47s and AR-15s off the street. They call them assault rifles. Well, that's just let the police handle everything. Well, the police obviously didn't handle it, did they? I mean, there were officers that were assigned to handle those things,
Right.
and they wimped
They didn't
out.
do it.
They wimped
didn't
out.
Well, whatever happened, happened. I don't know.
They wimped.
Maybe
they were hiding. They were scared.
They were probably Republicans.
Okay, so when Trump says something like, if I was there, I would have shot him. Well, you never know what you're going to do until you're there. Okay?
He said he's going without a gun.
Well,
That's what he said.
He should have just shut up about that, okay? I mean, it's the kind of stuff he
Dig a
does that
hole.
makes me cringe, but I know that when I was in that situation, I'm cowering in my classroom with no gun, and I don't know if there's a shooter in the building or not. It turned out there wasn't.
Right.
But I'm thinking, I wish I had my gun. I wouldn't be cowering
I
here.
understand
I'd be
that
out.
feeling.
I knew, that's how I felt at the time.
Exactly.
Now, how would I have felt if I actually did go out into the corridor and see a shooter and he's firing? Would I have then had the courage to shoot him with my, revolver, my .38 revolver, which is what I had? A snub nose, which is hard to shoot with. It's hard to hit what you're aiming at with one of those things if you've ever done it.
Now,
I don't know what I would have done because you never know what you're going to do until you're there. Until you're there, okay? So I like to think I would have. Yeah, I felt like it at the time. I know that. So, but you don't know. And so there's these cops. Maybe they thought that they would do it too. And then when they actually hear the gunfire going on and they hear people screaming, and then they just went out.
The other thing
you never know what you're going to do, right?
When you hear a gun firing, it can fire 100 shots a minute. What happens is you soon realize that
they don't shoot 100 shots a minute.
Oh, sure.
No, they don't. Not unless you got a bump stock, which he didn't need to have, right?
I think he did.
It's a semi-automatic. No, he didn't have a bump stock.
So you get off 40 shots and 30 shots in a minute. Every time you pull
bang,
the trigger.
Bang, bang, yeah, okay.
Right.
Not 100.
That's hard to jump in front of that with a pea shooter.
It would be.
I had a conversation.
Okay, let me just finish this.
Go ahead.
There was a situation where two jihadis went to Texas, Plano, Texas.
Right.
They were armed with assault rifles, and I believe they were the so-called assault rifles. I don't like to use the term, but they looked like the one that this kid had, and they could do the things that this.
Right.
I think they were AR-15.
They were shot.
So they were taken out, both of them, by a hired security guard with a pistol.
Yeah.
He shot both of them. He ended up taking a hit in the leg, but he neutralized the situation. They were trying to kill Pam Geller, this woman that I knew from my trips to Washington. Right? So that there's one example.
Yeah.
You can, and then you had Lawrence O'Donnell of MSNBC. You probably watch him. You watch that network. He comes out and he says, it just goes to show, I say the media bubble. They don't know anything about guns, these people. And when they start talking as if they do, then it shows how that they don't know anything. He comes out and he says, oh, well, a teacher with a pistol, using a pistol, an AK-47 or an AR-15, a bullet from them travels 3 times faster than one with a pistol, and it wouldn't even get to the shooter.
Probably not. It's probably not.
Probably not. Definitely not. I mean, there's a matter of they do travel faster, but it's only like tenths of a second slower.
But that has no context really.
But this guy talks. He's so smug. Clearly he's gun control guy. A whole network is CNN, MSNBC. They're all the gun control networks. They don't know what they're talking about.
Well, it may not.
And another one, an NBC woman, she said, she showed this clip, and it was a guy with a pump-action 12-gauge shooting at a watermelon, right? Boom! And the watermelon just disintegrates. She said, see what happens with an AR-15, what it can do? It was a pump-action shotgun. She calls it an AR-15.
Yeah.
This is the kind of, these are the people that are educating, trying to tell the whole country that gun control is the answer to this. They don't know anything about guns.
We did have a reduction During the 9 years, 8 or 9 or 10 years, that law you were talking about with the AK,
Gun-free zones?
Yeah, gun-free, not gun-free zones. They banned the sale of automatic weapons.
Yeah,
right?
that happened. Right.
Okay, it didn't. When we had
Didn't stop Columbine.
Columbine in the last in the 90s, I think it was 98 or 99.
It was 98. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first.
I was in Colorado
That
at the
was
time.
the first one that used an AK-47 type weapon, multiple
It
murders.
was the first big shooting.
All I think is, and I'm not against guns. What I'm against is the fact that a person with mental problems can go and buy a gun at a show in some states without a lot of information background, okay? I think if you're going to sell something that can kill 100 people in an hour, you should have to have the background checks that would prevent the lunatic from getting the gun. The police have to do a better job. They all have to do a better job, too, because when they're checking the background on these people, I guarantee you a lot of the people that have done these crimes are pretty well known before they've done the crime.
Yeah, they are.
But we're not handling it right. So
I have
we're
a lot to
making,
say about that.
Yeah, we're making all this stuff available to these nuts, and they're online, and they're talking online to other people of the same milk, talking about how they're going to go bomb a school or blow up. Why do we allow it? I don't understand it. I know we have a lot of freedoms. Freedom of speech is one thing, but you can't yell fire in a crowded theater either. So the point is, we have to draw a line between what's acceptable behavior prior to the...
I'm with you.
And I don't know why we do it. But in the meantime...
I have some
I
information
understand.
about that. Yeah.
In the meantime, we closed all our mental facilities back in the 80s and 90s.
Wrong to do so.
A lot of people are
Right.
on heavy drugs.
Yeah.
If they're off those drugs for one day,
Yeah.
this can happen.
Yeah.
So how the hell do you maintain that
We agree,
equilibrium?
Gino. We agree on
No,
this.
but what
It's
I'm saying is,
amazing.
in the meantime, to have someone say, a good guy with a gun always beats a bad guy with a gun, that's not...
Doesn't always.
It doesn't work. It worked. Look, there was a
Might be
reason...
a good guy with a gun that's a bad shot.
Yeah. There was a reason in the 1840s, 1860s, 1880s in the Old West where everybody hung their guns up at the door before they went to the saloon.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to walk around the saloon brandishing weapons. And we're not even ahead of that point yet. We got people walking around in Texas. They're walking to damn Walmarts and they got AK-47s over their shoulders.
Well,
It's too much.
you can walk into a saloon with a concealed weapon now.
Well, in New
A lot of
Hampshire,
people
yeah, you
do.
can walk in with an Uzi under your raincoat. Every right in the world in New Hampshire, because they said gun. It could be any kind of gun. If you get a howitzer under your coat.
The liberals in this state and in Maine said, "Oh my goodness, there's going to be an awful outbreak of gun violence if we allow this." Well, it's been 3 years in Maine. It's been 1 year in New Hampshire. There's no increase in gun violence in either state.
No, and
It's not a problem.
I just don't think it's
The
a I
problem
think
is not the guns. The problem is like you were just saying,
Yes.
the people who used to be in mental institutions.
Exactly,
And then
they're
they
out
were
on the
all closed
streets.
down. We said, okay, well, we're going to have them in community mental health centers and halfway houses. And well, it didn't happen, did
look
it?
at you can have your Second Amendment. You can have it, okay? Even though Justice Scalia, who I disagree with until the day he died, even though Justice Scalia said it doesn't allow every weapon. It does not allow every weapon. So you can make determinations on the type of weapons you're going to sell to these people who walk in off the street saying, hey, I want a gun, You got to stop that. The person has to have some standing, some uprightness before you sell them weapons of war.
You mean they can't have been gotten treatment for a mental illness,
Exactly.
or they can't have a criminal record?
Right now.
Okay, so let me give you.
One more quick
All
thing
right, and then
before I
I'll
forget.
address it.
They even are allowing people on no-fly lists to buy weapons. Now, that ain't bright. That's not bright, Tom. And that's what they're fighting about in Washington right now. Well, can we stop those people on no-fly lists? Of course you can. Don't even let them wear shoes they can put bombs in.
As long as the no-fly list doesn't have names on it of people who are
If
otherwise...
there's mistakes, then they
There are
apologize.
mistakes. There are a lot of them.
I know
evidently.
that.
If you
But
clean up the list, I'm with you. Don't let them buy guns.
anyway,
Okay, so my column that may come out locally tomorrow or not, I don't know. The paper does. If I write on national issues, sometimes the local paper doesn't carry it. But I wrote it anyway. I posted Monday. It was about the thing you were just talking about. My first teaching job was with juvenile delinquents in Massachusetts, and it was very shortly after they passed a special ed law. Now, and they closed down, not only did they close down mental institutions a little bit later, but they closed down all the reform schools in the counties.
Wow.
And so now you had some pretty tough kids in Massachusetts that all of a sudden now they're on the streets. What are you going to do with them? Well, they started schools like the school that I got my first job at. It was a day school, and we had juvenile delinquent. We also had other kids with mental illness that weren't delinquent. But most of the ones that I worked with, they were 14 to 18 juvenile delinquents, came out of a reform school, or they got kicked out of a public school. One kid threw a brick through the principal's windshield and then punched them, and then
Did you have a good reason?
and so they got kicked out of school and came to our school. They came from lockups to our school. Hopefully they could do well there, and then they go on back to public school. That was the idea. So they're not juvenile delinquents anymore. They're emotionally disturbed. They were disabled. They had a behavioral disability. Now, that changed everything because they could, the local school district and the state was on the hook to educate them until their 22nd birthday.
Right.
They could be, and so they would be sent to our school. Now, I never knew what the tuition for this is a private day school. I was one of 36 staff in Lowell, Mass, and there were 100 kids.
Wow.
So that's a 3-to-1.
3-to-1 ratio.
Yeah. And there was some of them were psychologists, social workers, various kinds of therapists, as well as us teachers. So we were pretty intense, but they were tough kids. And I was a young man, and me and these other two young guys were taught all the tough kids. Well, they were absent on Mondays because they'd gotten arrested over the weekend for either like possession of marijuana or selling it or B&E or purse snatching or something like that. So they're being arraigned on Mondays. Then they come in Tuesday. I say, "Hey, geez, you're absent every Monday." "I got to go to court. I just got to."
Repetitious.
You're gonna end up in jail, kid. He said, "Nah, they can't do anything to me until I'm 18, and and I'll stop then." Well, they figured it out.
Sure.
So that if they're getting arrested, we were supposed to be meeting their needs, and that's what the special ed law, which became federal that same year. I started in '75. Massachusetts law was adopted by the feds, and now we still have it. So this kid, Cruz, he was under that. Now, they didn't come out and say that because they can't. But I recognized all the signs. This kid had been at other schools, and then now clearly the kids at our schools, are we meeting their needs if they're getting arrested every weekend? Clearly not.
No.
Clearly they need more restrictive setting. But to go from, like in today's money, it would cost like $30,000, $40,000 to send them to a day school, which is what we had, right? They needed a lockup. They needed a residential school. That would have cost like $150,000 a year or more.
Wow.
Then it was $80,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so the local school districts don't want to do this.
No.
They'd say rather send them to the Herman School, is the name of my school, and for 1/3 the cost. So they had private meetings. The evaluation team, well, how's he doing? Oh, he's had a few little scrapes, but he's doing okay. We're meeting his needs at this school. Yeah, okay. No oversight, all confidential. They sign it off. Yep, another year at the Herman School.
Now, were they getting a regular education there too? I mean, was it considered like a high school education? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I would teach. Well, I had a individual plan for each kid. I didn't have a lot of kids in the class. I only had like 7 or 8 kids in one class. Anyway, what they were doing in Florida, way beyond that. They had, because of the...
You're talking now?
Now.
Yeah.
For the last 10 years or so. Eric Holder, he talked about the school to prison pipeline, especially with minority kids. So we have to stop this. So you could only suspend so many black kids each month, so many Hispanic kids each month. And once you reach that quota, no more suspensions. Then they said, oh, well, there's too many arrests. You know, we need to bring down the juvenile delinquency rate. So they'd cooperate with the Broward County Sheriff's Department and other county sheriff's
Visitation
department.
stuff.
Don't arrest them. They're still doing the crimes, but they're not getting arrested. And that's what happened with Cruz. That's what happened with Trayvon Martin. You know, because this reporter went in and he said, Trayvon Martin, he's this giant kid who beat the hell out of Zimmerman before Zimmerman shot him.
Well,
And he wasn't on the way to get
I
Skittles.
don't want
with
to
his hoodie.
argue that case, but the thing
I
is,
will, because this guy looked into that case, and he said he got some cops from that sheriff's department. He said, let me tell you, Trayvon Martin was arrested. He should have been arrested for stealing, for other things, but he wasn't. Because
I don't disagree with
he's a
anything you're
black
trying to. But my argument with this whole thing is,
Well, I'm going to finish with
Go
one
ahead, go
point.
ahead.
Cruz did stuff that he should have been arrested for, but wasn't because
Mm-hmm.
of this program. Because he's a minority, Cruz. So he had no record. So when he finishes school, he can go right out and buy a gun. No
Well,
record.
yeah,
If they did what they were supposed to and arrested him, he never could have bought that gun.
he was kicked out of school. I guess he was in
No, he
like a
wasn't.
special
Can't
school.
do it.
Well, they kicked him out of that school. He had to go to a special school.
R-
But he wasn't enrolled in that school. He was.
They
kicked
would
out.
try to, they'd have
Yeah.
one of these secret meetings, and they'd say he needs to go to another school.
did.
But
They
then
sent
they
him,
sent him back. Clearly, he wasn't ready
The
to
thing
come
is,
back.
here's the problem. As you were talking about all these young kids, which is what you're primarily dealing with, 14 to 16, 17, 18, right? Would be on the outer
Back
edge.
then, yeah.
Juvenile delinquency. When the rates of crime fall in a lot of the major cities all around the country, they fall during the time when the numbers of juvenile delinquents is lower. The crime rates go down, they go up with the rise of population within the cities that are now more juvenile delinquents than there were before. Here's the thing, and that's pretty well proven in criminology in this country, but here's the thing. If you allow yourself to sell them this heavy artillery when they're in their teens,
Allow yourself to sell them.
yeah, if you allow your sales of heavy-duty weapons to these teenagers while they're in their teens, it's a big, big mistake, because that is probably the time when they were most irreconcilable with the people around them. They think in terms, they don't think in long terms of, well, yeah, when I'm 18, I can't get put in jail. I can't be put in jail
Until
I'm 18. Yeah, until I'm 18.
Yeah.
They think like that.
They do.
They're trained that way.
Absolutely do.
But if you sell them machine guns in that time period, you're really looking for real serious. And I think what happens if they get to that
They're not
21.
machine guns.
Well, I'm using them because they can fire a
Don't
lot.
say
of
that
them.
because they're not machine guns.
They're automatic weapons.
They're
heavy
not
weapons.
automatic weapons.
They
They're
can be
semi-
made
they're
automatic by
semi-automatic.
something you buy over the counter, Tom. You can buy something over a bump stock over the counter that will convert any automatic weapon to be able to. Okay.
Act like one.
Here's
yeah,
the point.
You're right.
Act like 100 bullets a minute, whatever.
But that's not what Cruz had.
I don't care what he had. The point is, he had a heavy piece of artillery that any 18 or 17-year-old kid should never have out on the street. If you move that age up to 21 or 22, you wouldn't allow that to be sold to someone that really, because these kids have a lot of mental problems. I mean, seriously, he may be only 1 out of 100, 3,000 kids in the school. There's probably only 10 Cruzes in that school. But if they
We
can all...
don't know. You know, that kid should have been arrested, wasn't arrested. So, yeah, the statistics of juvenile crime went way down, and these school districts would get awards for that.
Exactly.
And they would get federal grants.
Right.
From Obama and Arnie
Whoever.
Duncan.
I don't even care who.
They did.
I understand
Okay,
that.
but did juvenile crime really go down? No, only the records of the
numbers of-
juvenile
well,
crime was
either that or the
changed.
numbers
They
of juvenile-
fudged it. They fudged the records.
Well, let's arrest everybody from the Obama administration,
They
and
should-
maybe will we
you know,
be all well
these
then?
These kids should have been in reform schools.
You know what?
Juvenile
Nobody wanted.
lockups. That's where they should have been.
Tom, we have the biggest prison system in the world. We have more people in the prison in this country than anywhere, and I think maybe even in China.
So what?
We've got 2 million people. Well, at $100,000 a cell, okay, to put a person in prison for a year.
Doesn't cost that much, but
Well, nobody wants to spend any money for this stuff anyway. Okay.
I work in the jails, right? I work in the Cumberland County Jail every Thursday, and there's about 85 guys on each pod, and I'll get about 8 or 10 guys will come into my little Bible study. But it's a different group every week, but most all of them are addicts. That's the
Right.
issue, and they'll tell you, yeah, I'm a heroin addict. I'm an alcoholic. I do whatever's available,
Right.
whatever. I
Right.
can't stop myself, and this is my 12th time being in jail here, and that's what they are. They're not bad guys. They're in there. They're sober.
Exactly, of course.
Right, but
See,
the
I
rest
don't
of
even
them
believe-
are kinda
I don't believe in
cuckoo.
the drug laws,
They're cuckoo.
okay?
There's mentally ill kids. Some of them are both. They're
I think
addicts and they're mentally
I think all
ill.
drugs should be legalized. I'm like Bill. He thought all drugs should be legalized back
I
in
know
the
he
day.
did,
That was
yeah.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
But he could see, he was a visionary. He could see what was going to happen if you started putting every other guy in Texas. You get 100 years for a couple of joints. Come on, it's insane. Some millionaire can kill his wife and 3 kids and get away with walking out the door with a good lawyer. A guy has a joint, a bag full of marijuana in Texas. I mean, it's
So
ridiculous.
these school resource officers, right? They would be the
Yeah.
ones who would fudge the
Yeah,
criminal
well, they-
records
yeah.
of the Nicholas Cruzes and the Trayvon Martins.
Yeah.
They became the crookedest cops because local gangs would use these kids. I don't know about Trayvon Martin. I don't know
Yeah.
about Cruz and
Yeah.
those 2 guys specifically. But there's a whole bunch of counterparts of them in every high school in that area. And the
Probably.
local gangs would use them to do illegal stuff,
So
knowing
getting back-
that
yeah.
they wouldn't be arrested.
But getting back to our original topic was, should teachers have guns? I
Yes.
say, you think
Not
yes?
the ones who want to, and the ones who are going to be trained to use them properly.
You don't
Only
think the
those
guys?
teachers.
You don't think the resource guys that were behind the wall hiding? You don't think they were trained to use a gun?
They were trained, but they had no guts.
Well, maybe a teacher won't either. You're going to depend
Maybe
on
not.
that teacher to
but
be
there
your
were
guts.
some teachers. There was that coach who put
Stood
a
in front
body
of-
in
I know.
front of the others
I know.
and ended
I
up
know.
dead.
I
What if
know.
he had a gun? You
I
know, he
know.
could have probably done something. Now,
I know.
that kind of
It's
guy
sad.
clearly was motivated. He had guts.
I know, but
All right,
I
so
don't
there
think
are those
teachers.
guys in those schools. Maybe there's some women like that too. I don't know.
I don't
but
know.
if they want to, only if they want to, and they got to train. I'll tell you what. I'm a pretty good shot with a rifle. I can hit what I'm aiming.
Let
at
me
with
give
that.
you a quick show.
But
You
with
get
a
out-
pistol, I got to train.
We've been
I
on
gotta
this
keep
subject
practicing.
quite a while. I talked with a former Connecticut state trooper the other day. He lives up here now, and we were talking. He said, "Gee, a buddy of mine." We were talking about this thing about teachers having guns. He said, "My buddy and I were chatting a few weeks ago." And he said we were talking about when his buddy retired from the Connecticut State Police, and to fill in now and then, he would go work in the banking trade. Following up on crime and stuff like that.
Banking trade.
The banks in Connecticut. He just worked for the
An
banks.
armed guard in a bank.
No, he wasn't an armed guy. He just did some background work on potential robberies and stuff like that, if they had a robbery. So he happened to be at a
Security
bank.
work. Okay.
Yeah. He happened to be at a bank one day in Connecticut. And while he was in the back room, it was a little mirror that you could see out into, a guy come in with a gun. And he was a pistol. He was going to rob the bank. He's standing in the middle of the floor waving his gun around, telling him all your money, your life, whatever. He's peeking out the door, and he takes out his pistol. And he was showing me how he did it. He said the guy took his gun. Now, this is a regular state trooper. He says he's aiming at the guy. He's aiming for his hat. Bang! He shoots, and he shoots the gun out of his hand, out of the guy's hand. And then he arrested him. But the point is, that was how bad his aim was when he was 40 feet away in a bank. And this guy's a trained, he said the guy's an ace. But because of the pressure, this and that it's a different world.
Never know what's going to happen.
You're going to shoot a human being, So you might want to, but when it comes to pulling the trigger, it takes a little work.
So he acted like he was Annie Oakley, huh?
Annie
He was
Oakley
able to
shot the guy. He
hit
didn't want to
shoot the gun right out
He
of
was
his
shooting
hand.
for his hat. He hit the
Accidentally.
guy's gun. So that was it. Ended the crime.
Which was in the air.
But this is the thing about it, teacher. I could bring you back to that.
Hey, I don't know.
They pull the alarm. There's 3,000 kids in the hallways screaming, running for the doors.
That's not typical.
It only has to happen once every 3 months, which is happening in this country. 100 and how many school shootings in the last year?
If that coach had a gun, it would have ended sooner.
Yeah.
There would have been fewer people
And
killed.
if Donald Trump was there, he would have broken the guy's arms and taken the gun away and kicked him in the ass. All right, Donald, you win again. Anyway, let's move on. Hey, let's go on to the good. We're going to treat our audience.
Good news, bad news.
Good
Let's
news,
do that.
bad
Got
news.
any good news?
Yes, this is what hit me the hardest.
What?
Thank God, curling is off television for the next 4 years. Curling.
Really?
I was on the road playing in a
You
poker
forced yourself
tournament.
to watch it?
3 o'clock in the morning, I'm watching a poker. I'm at a poker tournament. That when I get through, and I'm in the hotel room and I'm watching TV. What the hell comes on? Curling. I'm having breakfast at a
People
restaurant.
with brooms that are in front of this thing.
I look up in the restaurant and there's curling.
Yeah.
I swear to God, this is the first Olympics that only had curling. I saw a
Only
little.
had. That's all you
curling.
saw anyway. Yeah. Okay.
And you know the funny part about the Americans that won the tournament?
They won the curling thing.
I've seen those guys before. I think they were 5 bowlers from Akron, Ohio. Big ball. So because they really look like that, and they should just go back into Akron, stay there, never come out again.
You know, I heard something funny about that.
Let me
This
give you
is
the
a true
bad
story.
news.
There's this Russian athlete was taking performance-enhancing drug. Guess what his event was?
Curling.
What do you need performance-enhancing drugs to you sweep in front of a
Have you
sliding object? I don't
Have
know.
you ever curled one of those stones?
I have never had the urge to
Well,
curl
until
one of
you
those
do.
stones. No.
The bad news, Norway,
I think I can die happy. without
Norway,
having
who's going
done
to
that.
send all its people now to the United States because of Donald Trump. All the new immigrants are going to be from Norway. A couple of rules they put in: they have to be blonde, they have to be white, they have to have a lot of money. They wiped the U.S. out in skiing.
Yeah.
They're coming here to take us over in the Olympics. So there you go.
Okay, that's the good news.
That's
is
the good
that-
news. That was the bad news.
That was the bad news.
Yeah, the
about
good news
curling.
is we won't have to watch curling for 4 more years.
Oh, okay. Good. My good news is that there's a Supreme Court case being argued this year. Now that we got 9 justices, there'll be a decision.
Oh, yeah.
And it has to do with public employee unions mandating that non-union members pay a fee for collective bargaining and other things. Okay, so if this happens, it'll be very similar to what there was a 4-4 tie because Scalia had just died when they adjudicated
I know.
this.
Wasn't that sad?
So Scalia probably would have voted, to stop this practice. The Democrats are desperate because most of their money, most of the Democrat Party money, statewide and national, comes from public employee unions, teachers unions, but also all the rest of them. The case is called Janus versus AFSCME. I used to belong to that union when
they
I worked
ruled on it yet?
in Massachusetts. No, they haven't ruled on it. They
thought
just
it-
had public arguments the other day. over
Okay,
the
that's
last
what I
few
heard,
days.
yeah, yeah.
The decision will come down in June or July.
I think the request is to have them pay part of the dues based on the negotiations that the unions do or something. There's like a partial payment or something. I don't know if that's what the argument was.
Well, when I was a teacher, for a while I belonged to the teachers union, and then I quit it.
Yeah.
So I at the time the dues was like a little over $400 a year, which most of it went to the National Education Association, which gave most of the money to Democrats and Democrat candidates and Democrat causes like lesbian, gay, bisexual stuff and all that.
Your favorite
Stuff that I was against, but yet, so I said, I'm out of here. I don't want,
gotta
my
we
money
got-
going to these people.
Okay, we got to do winners
But
and
then
losers.
I didn't have to pay anymore. Okay?
we gotta
But
do-
some states you do. In New York City, New York alone, the state of New York, Democrats would lose over $100 million. So that's a big hit. Nation in Wisconsin, when Governor Scott Walker did this, to the teachers unions and the other public employee unions, he managed to push it through the legislature and signed it, saying they didn't have to pay anymore. They didn't have to belong to the union
Yeah.
anymore. Guess what? No, very few people joined the union, and it fell apart.
Okay, let's just look at one other point of that because we got to move on because we haven't done. You got to look at the other part of it. There have been studies done on states that have the right to work laws, which means you can work without belonging to the union.
Yeah.
In those states, the average employee in the same capacity in a business makes 15 to 20% less per year
Yeah.
than the union employee in the non-right to work states. So if you think having people not belong to a union is making them wealthier and better kept over time, it's not true. Why
Not
don't
good news to you,
we
but
got-
it's good news to me. That was my
All
good
right.
news.
That was good news. What's the bad?
Because
What
it
was your
looks
bad?
like-
What was your
because
bad news?
it
We gotta
looks
move on.
like
We're losing time here.
The unions are going to lose. Now, my bad news was,
Yeah.
this is bad news, more bad news for the Democrats,
God.
which is that there's a movie coming out on April 6th
Mm-hmm.
called Chappaquiddick.
Oh, good. Yeah, that happened like 40, 50 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
very
really,
few people
yeah.
know the story, actually.
Oh, no, they want to know, yeah.
Yep.
They come on with Chappa Hillary next year, too.
So it's going to be good.
Oh, yeah, that's a good movie, yeah. I mean,
I read a review of it. Evidently,
Ted
it's pretty
Kennedy's
accurate.
been dead for 10 years. It happened when he was 32 years old. For God's sakes, do you never forget? Ah. Anyway, all right.
The
How about
liberal
losers?
lion.
The losers to me, the winners, the students from Parkland, Florida. They were the winners. I have never seen a more
The ones who
erudite
lived.
bunch of students that have explained how they feel about that tragedy. I'm really impressed. It gave me new hope for public school systems. The losers are the damn Parkland, Florida Police Department with
Oh,
that
man.
crazy, what's his name, Israel?
Yeah.
The chief. First couple of times I heard him, I said, "Yeah, this guy's pretty smart." And then I hear, oh, wait a minute, 37 times at the kid's house, and they couldn't pick him up and say, hey, we're going to give you a ride downtown and check on your brain. And the other thing was, 4 of their cops not entering the building. And what's the hell's the story about the SWAT team? They all wait. I don't know, they wait till like, let's all get together and then we'll go into the building as a team or something. What is
I didn't
that?
read about the SWAT team.
They're even slower. I mean,
Really?
they're going to get their tank and get the tank over there and get out the machine guns and the big heavy armaments and the equipment they wear. I mean, what is this stuff? Go in. Anyway, so they're the winners and losers for me. Did you have winners and losers? You didn't do winners.
No, I did win. I did good news, bad news.
Yeah.
My winners would be conservativetreehouse.com. It's a website that looked into exactly what I was telling you about,
Oh.
how the cops and the schools conspired together to cover up juvenile crime,
Okay.
Nicholas
All right.
Cruz
That's good.
and Trayvon Martin,
Okay.
and how many dozens or hundreds of other kids in Florida, and they set up the situation that we had. And they were the same cops
Mm-hmm.
who you're now talking about, Israel and his sheriff's department,
Yeah.
as well as the Dade County
But you've got all
cops,
Republican
okay?
leadership in Florida. What is going on with these Republicans? They don't do anything. I mean, you got a governor, the whole House and
So
Senate.
the winners are my winner
Right.
is Conservative Treehouse for looking into this, and they started looking into it back in 2012.
Who were the
Right, so
losers?
My loser, it would be CNN and MSNBC because of the stupid coverage that they've had. Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC and for CNN for putting on that show with the 1 hour long documentary where they pretty much this was a gun control meeting.
We
right?
have to mention something we haven't talked about, and I want to talk about this because this is very important to me because I know you've been there and you've liked it in the past. The CPAC national meeting that they have every year, I think it was down at
Conservative Political
Conservative
Action
Political
Conference.
Action Committee. Their guests this year were beyond anything I could have imagined anywhere except in Austria in 1933 or 34. Their guest list, Donald Trump,
He's
Pablo.
been there before.
Senator Cruz, the only senator that was invited, by the way, this year, Cruz. Nigel Farage from Great Britain, the
I like him.
Brexit thing.
Yeah.
Ms. Le Pen, who came there from France. She recently lost the election in France, and she came to the United States to show it, bragging about her grandfather, who was a Nazi. He was
don't
a
think she
freaking.
bragged about her
Oh, yes,
grandfather.
she was. How wonderful her grandfather was. And then who else came? Then they were booing Mona Charen. a top-flight Republican conservative for 50 years, and they were booing her because she said something about Trump and his predilection for grabbing women by their genitalia in public that he confessed to he's on tape. Now he's denying it because he even denied the tape. How does he do this stuff? And the other one, Michael Steele, the former Republican national chairman, one of the guys from the CPAC, come on and said, well, because when they elected that Obama, and we had to pick Michael Steele as our chair of the RNC because he was black. I mean, what is this stuff? You got all these Nazis meeting. You got, I forget what Trump was talking about. He just went over my head with something. What the heck was he talking about? He had some speech that was so bizarre. Oh, the snake! The famous snake speech, which basically equates to people coming into the country, illegal immigrants. He converted to that famous snake speech about the snake. Woman takes the snake home, and the snake bites him in the neck. You never heard him say that one?
No.
We have a crazy president, folks. We have a crazy man. I think, Tom, in a moment of clarity, you'd agree with me.
Oh, yeah. The other guy, as far as using pistols against guys with high-powered rifles.
Yes.
That Bernie Sanders supporter that was shooting Republican congressmen at a softball practice.
Oh,
just
that
about
guy,
a year ago, right?
Lousy
so
shot.
He hit Scalise and almost killed him. And then, you know who he was taken out by? Cops with pistols.
Yeah, the palace guard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pistols really do work against assault rifles, don't they, Gino?
I don't know. Well, it's one thing. It depends on where you are. If you're in a big open field, you can take a guy out with a rifle,
Okay, the Google lawsuit.
Who?
The Google is a very big tech company, Gino.
Mm-hmm.
And they fired a guy who was a conservative white guy because he was critical of some of their so-called diversity programs. And this goes, they're run by, this CEO is a very big Democrat supporter and a huge contributor to the Democrat
What's his name?
Party.
Bezos? Is that Bezos?
No, that's Amazon guy. I forget the guy's name now.
Whatever, he's got a ton of money.
He does, and he gives a lot of it to your side. Mm-hmm. Anyway, then there's the DNC itself. They needed some tech people, so they said that. Let me quote this now. Diversity. They also have this diversity program. They want to only hire people, that are diverse, and that diversity does not include cisgender white males.
Who?
Cisgender.
What's a
white
cisgender?
Males. You don't even know, do you?
I don't know.
Well, you're one of them.
I'm not up on
You are one of them.
I'm a cisgender?
As far as I know, you are. Yeah, I don't know. I can tell
Was
you
that
that I
qualified
am a
before?
cisgender white male, meaning that I'm heterosexual.
Oh, I'm a
All right?
cisgender?
I like women.
Yeah, I do. I've always
I
had
don't
that
like
problem.
men, and I don't like other so-called genders and so
I like
forth.
men, but I only like them
And
to
I'm a
talk
white
about
guy, so I'm a
Yeah.
white male,
So you're
a
cisgender.
heterosexual white guy. We cannot be considered to work for the DNC.
The DNC.
Right. So is that discrimination? I think
course
that's
it is.
racial
Of course
discrimination
it is.
on the part of Google and on the part of the DNC. So this guy from Google is suing the company. I don't know how far he's going to get with it, but
Probably not very far.
well, I think
You can sue
they got
anybody.
deep pockets.
In this country, you can
We'll
sue
see what
anybody,
happens.
okay?
I think that's good news.
Here's the thing. We have to have an
Maybe
update.
we'll hear about more while I'm watching Chappaquiddick at the movies. That'll be pretty good.
We need an update on the Mueller investigation via Robert Mueller. While we were gone over the past 2 weeks, 13 Russians and 1 United States citizen were indicted under various crimes by Mueller. Let's see. Manafort has now been accused of undermining America. And the same, his buddy, Gates, has also pled guilty to that charge of undermining America. And now yesterday,
Undermining America?
Undermining, that's one of the charges.
Offense?
Well, it used to be called treason. Now in this era of not wanting to say anything too bad. But now yesterday, Gates flipped. He is now pled guilty to all charges, and Mueller has let him off the hook for any bad things he did. So interesting things happen. Carter Page, he is indicted, of course, but he's
No,
also
he isn't.
He's been indicted.
No, you're wrong, Gino.
Papadopoulos was indicted.
Papadopoulos.
Okay.
Carter Page was never
Oh,
indicted.
Carter Page is the one that falls under the FISA that they were complaining about the fact
The
that
FBI and the DOJ called Carter Page a foreign agent.
right. Well,
Yeah.
that might be from going to meet
You know
with
how
the
much
Russians.
evidence they had for he was a foreign agent?
How much evidence?
They got the FISA warrant based on
What
that.
is it going to take for you and the rest of these right-wing Republicans to finally come, when they finally drop the ball on our boy Donald and his family of gangsters, when they finally drop the bomb on him, I want you to apologize to this nationwide audience right on our
Mueller,
national air.
Gino. Mueller was hired to look into collusion between Russia and the Trump camp.
Right.
Right? You know how much evidence he's got of that? Nothing.
Got
You know what
Gates.
all these indictments you're talking about, they're for events that took place years before Trump even announced for president.
Some,
You
not
know,
all,
they have
Tom.
nothing to do
Okay.
with the Trump campaign.
Oh, the meeting
Those
on-
Russians were indicted for trying to manipulate the election.
Trying?
15 guys with a $2 million budget. These Russians, who we're never going to get out of Russia, we're never going to indict them. Mueller is trying to make it seem like there's a there. He has
I
found
see, he's-
nothing
okay.
having to do with what his original
When you believe
charge
it, when you
was,
believe it, when
Gino.
Flynn testifies, when this guy Gates testifies, who's been working with Manafort for the last 10 years, will you believe it when they testify under oath?
Gino, Flynn pled guilty, right? Looks like he's withdrawing his guilty plea.
Because he thinks he's
Because
going to
the
get a
federal
pardon.
judge that took the place of, like when Flynn pleaded guilty, he pled guilty to a FISA court judge. This FISA court judge has recused himself from the case. We don't know why.
Maybe he
You
doesn't
say
like the case.
that these other people have flipped. Let me tell you no, this hasn't come out in the news yet,
Okay.
but I'll tell you who else has flipped to our side. That would be Lisa Page, FBI agent Strzok,
Oh, please. They'll dip nothing there.
DOJ Assistant Attorney General Orr, and let's see who else, and also former head of counterintelligence for the FBI. His name is because you haven't heard it before.
No one will ever hear
I
the
told
names.
you those people are all
So-
they're all singing to the Inspector General Michael Horowitz. And when that report comes out next month,
I
you
see.
know,
It's
it's
gonna
going to
be-
blow
oh,
everything
absolutely.
right out of
I listen
the
to
water.
Hannity, too. Here's the thing. The 4 FISA judges that are involved in these various FISA cases, all Republican appointees.
There are about a dozen of them.
Mueller worked for Republicans, put in place by Republicans. Comey, a Republican. Rothenstein, whatever his name is, a Republican. How can you have so many Republicans behaving like Democrats all of a sudden?
You're going to see some indictments, Gino.
All right.
And you might one of the people indicted may very well be Comey himself.
I see. Okay, he's going away. Here we go. Let's do.
You don't want to hear about it. I
No,
know.
it's
but
not.
you
even-
will. You will.
I listened to it on
Will you believe
Hannity.
it then, Gino?
I'll believe anything except when Hannity says, and I listen to him all the time. He's nuts.
Okay.
Here we go. That station ought to be called the Trump TV Network, okay? In 2016, a Department of Homeland Security report estimated that 170,000 people successfully entered the U.S. illegally from the southern border the prior year, 2015, compared to 1.7 million in 2005. Assuming these statistics are accurate, do you think the price tag of $18 billion for the border wall is worth it?
Could you read the first part of that again, please?
Yeah. 170,000 people came in the country illegally in 2015. There was
I question that statistic.
1.7 million. Yeah, southern border. 1.7 million came in, so 10 times more came in in 2005 than they did in 2015. Do you feel the $18 billion price tag for the border wall, southern border wall, is worth it?
Absolutely worth it.
Really?
In 2010, I've been hearing about people coming over the border wall a lot for several years previous. I got this deal, came by email, to go to Arizona. I went down there for 4 or 5 days for about $500. So I stayed in Tucson, and then I'd drive down to the border.
Oh, yeah.
So I drove to Nogales, and I drove to Douglas,
Right.
two big border crossings down there. And the first time I went, Nogales,
Right.
so you come to the fence,
I know.
and then there's a road. You've probably seen photographs of it. And there's a road this
I've
way,
been
and a
down
road
there.
that way. Okay, so I took. I got a rented Jeep, and I'm driving on this road. So I see these border patrol guys in their green pickup trucks, and they got screening over the window. It's like chain link fencing over the windows all around. And so I stop and talk to them. He says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I just wanted to come down and look at the border, see what's going on." And he said, "This is dangerous here." I said, "Why is it dangerous? I'm in the United States. Mexico's over there." He said, "It's dangerous. You shouldn't be here." I said, "You mean is it legal for me to be here?" "Yeah, it's legal, but you shouldn't be here, because this is why we." I said, "What's with the fence?" He says, "That's because they're constantly throwing rocks at us, so they bounce off and they won't break out. These, the Mexicans that are coming over." And so then, shoom, something comes over the wall, right? See what I'm talking about? And it turns out that the guy was from Maine.
Yeah.
He's from Lisbon Falls, Maine.
Lisbon Falls.
And so I'm talking to him, and I said, "You guys look like you could use some more help down here." He said, "Are you telling me?" He said, "We can't keep up." He said, in 1 month, we'll get tens of thousands coming through right here, this area alone."
Yeah.
He said, "And that's the ones we catch."
Yeah.
He said, "There's many times more than that we don't catch." So this statistic, I don't know where it comes from,
I don't either.
but
It came from the producer.
come where? Fox News.
Oh.
Well, I question it.
So it's
But
170,000.
this guy from Maine, he was telling me there's a whole lot more
Yeah.
just in Nogales. So
Well, actually, Trump and Obama were shipping a lot of people back. I mean, they're shipping I forget how many thousand a year, 600,000 a year. They pick them up all the time. They just ship them back. I don't know who keeps the records, but I saw
I
something.
looked at the records from the Center for Immigration Studies, and those records come from, it would have much bigger numbers than those. We've been hearing about 11 million illegal immigrants in the United States, and we get about 1 million a year, but it never goes higher than 11 million immigrants in the United States.
You're going to keep in mind one thing. A lot of these people that come here to work, they come here in the winter time or whenever the crops are ready. How much time?
Got 2 minutes left.
Okay. However, what they come here for, they come here to work. A lot of them go back. They come over, they go back.
Yeah.
This isn't the
I got no
greatest
problem
place
with
in the
that.
world
That's
to live.
wonderful if
There's
they do
always
that.
Norway.
Good.
So, I mean, they do that.
Yeah.
But the problem is, the
Those
company,
are legal
I've said this
workers.
before till I'm blue in the face. The companies that hire them should be charged
Yep.
for their illegal
I'm with you.
behavior, and then they won't come back.
I'm with
They'll
you.
go and come back, or they'll leave.
But you can't get a majority of senators or congressmen to vote for that, and they call it.
And
what do they
why
call
is
it?
that?
There's a name for that program.
Why is that?
Because they want illegal immigrants to come in.
There you go.
Democrats
They're
because they're going to be
working for-
Democrat voters, and Republicans because they're going to work cheap.
So are you thinking any more about my plan to have us turn into a parliamentary democracy?
Oh man!
Wouldn't it
you
be
wanna
nice if
talk
they
about-
could really yell at each other for a while, and you could tell some of these people exactly what they think of each other?
I would.
And this stinks.
Maybe so.
We still got a minute.
we're-
We've got. I'm checking my timing here.
We should have. That would involve a constitutional convention and a complete revamping. We have to
I
scrap the
understand,
Constitution
but this system-
and rewrite it from front to back.
I hate to tell you, this system isn't working because you guys were complaining all those years about Obama and the deficit, and we just shot up another $7 trillion.
I agree with you on that.
I mean, what is the story?
It's terrible. It's terrible.
I mean, it's
And
bizarre.
Trump has kept most of he's really tried to fulfill his campaign promises, but he never said anything about deficits, and and that's a huge problem. And Paul Ryan, used to be the deficit king. He was going to be the one
Oh,
to
yeah.
reform the
Yeah.
system. He doesn't say anything
For
about
God's
it
sake,
anymore.
where was he from? Ohio?
We're going to
No.
wrap it up. No, he's from Wisconsin.
All right, I'm
So,
not buying
yeah,
any more
we
cheese
agree.
till he's out.
We'll finish on
We
that
agree
note
on
of agreement,
something.
and we'll be back
We'll see you
on
next
March
time,
the
and you'll have to
13th.
listen to him next time with his plans or whatever he comes up with. Thank you, folks. Done.